Welcome, brave soul, I am the Forgotten Storyteller. Before we begin, tap that like button if you dare, and drop a comment below telling me where in the world you're listening from. And if you make it to the end of this video, I hope to see you in the next story. I hope you're ready, because I am. Let's begin. They say laughter is the sound of joy, but at midnight in a certain small city, it was the last thing anyone wanted to hear. Our story today begins in the quiet, trembling heart of a forgotten town. Nestled among woods that whisper secrets to the wind and fog that clings like memory, there lies a playground. It isn't much, a few rusted swings, a crooked slide, and a merry-go-round that creaks when there's no breeze. By day it's harmless. Smiling children run barefoot across the sand, while weary parents sip lukewarm coffee from faded thermoses, unaware that the earth beneath their children's feet feeds on their every laugh, just waiting. But when the sun sets, when the orange hue of dusk bleeds into deep indigo, and the last bird retreats to its nest, something changes. You can feel it in your skin, a kind of stillness, like the world holding its breath. It starts with soft sounds, so faint you might mistake them for wind, the scuff of little feet, the squeak of a chain swaying though no child is near it, the high-pitched giggle that skips across the air and disappears. And then they leave the playground. These spirits, these childlike things, once human perhaps but no longer, emerge from the shadows and broken wood of that haunted playground. Their eyes are hollow, wide, gleaming with a hunger not for candy or cartoons, but for company. They search the dark streets in silence, always in silence, slipping through cracks, slipping through locks, slipping through dreams. And each morning, another child's bed lies cold and untouched. Their name never spoken again. The town panicked. Parents boarded windows, installed deadlocks. Some even slept in their children's rooms. But it didn't matter. The spirits knew how to wait, and how to whisper things into little ears that made them unlock their own doors. For a long time, no one fought back. That is, until Lucy. Lucy was different. She had the kind of gaze that seemed to weigh the world. A quiet woman, pale from grief, with dark circles under her eyes like bruises from wrestling with sleep. Ever since her husband died 2 years prior, it had just been her and her daughter Jane, 7 years old. A bright, curious girl with red sneakers, always scuffed at the toes. Lucy had heard the stories. Everyone had. The local news spun them as disappearances, but everyone knew. You don't put 2 deadbolts on your child's bedroom door because they might run away. One night, Lucy couldn't sleep. The night was thick and humid. A thunderstorm hung in the distance but never came. The air in her house felt wrong, charged like something was waiting. She went to check on Jane. The little girl was fast asleep, thumb tucked under her chin, mouth parted slightly. The soft breath of childhood dreams. Then she heard it. Giggle. Not Jane's voice. This was shriller and smaller, coming from behind her. Lucy turned slowly. In the hallway, a silhouette. It was child-sized. Very thin but looked so wrong. It moved without sound. And it grinned without lips. Lucy didn't scream. She lunged. The thing flinched back, and in that moment she slammed the bedroom door shut and turned the key she kept on a necklace around her neck. Heart pounding, she pressed her back to the door as tiny hands scratched on the other side, not from Jane, but from the thing outside. It didn't speak, but something changed in the air. The thing was disappointment and filled with rage. And then it was gone. That night, Lucy sat awake, cradling a flashlight and a carving knife. She knew it wasn't over. They had tried to take her daughter. Next time, they'd come stronger and smarter. She needed answers. So, while Jane slept safely under the covers, Lucy turned to the strange corners of the internet. She found message boards long abandoned. Forums with names like Children of the Dust, and They Take What They Were. Most of it was rambling madness. But one post, just one, stood out. A user named Whisper_Hand78 had written, "They are bound to the place they died. They cannot leave without bringing another child to take their place. If you capture one, the others will try to bargain. They don't lie, but they don't tell the whole truth either. Never accept their deals. To trap one, you must offer it something real, something it wants. Not fear, not hate, not pain. It must be affection or attention. A child's toy, imbued with real emotion. Then trap it in a circle of iron and salt. And do not break the line." It was madness. But what about this wasn't? So Lucy did exactly that. She took Jane's favorite stuffed bunny, a faded white toy with one missing ear, and pressed it to her daughter's chest as she slept. She whispered love into it, then laid it in the center of a salt circle in the basement. She waited, for what felt like weeks, and then it came. One of them fell. blurred at the edges like a memory you try not to remember. It reached for the bunny with greedy hands. And when it stepped into the circle, the iron shavings at the base of the salt line glowed like embers. The creature let out a scream that wasn't sound but thought. A mental shattering, sharp and raw, echoing inside Lucy's skull. It clawed at the circle's edge, but it was trapped. Lucy had done it. She had captured one. But then the notes began. Not written on paper. Scratched into mirrors. Scrawled in frost across windows. Etched into condensation on the fridge door. Let him go, Lucy. We promise no more games. We will leave Jane alone. Forever. They were desperate. And desperate spirits are dangerous. Lucy didn't reply. Didn't speak. Just watched the shadows grow darker, the nights longer. Jane began sleepwalking again. Talking in her dreams. Saying names Lucy didn't know. But what if it was true? What if they really would leave Jane alone? Forever? Or what if it was all part of something much, much worse? They didn't give up. Each night after Lucy captured the spirit, the house grew colder. The walls creaked more. Shadows twisted against light that shouldn't bend. She stopped sleeping. Every sound made her heart race. The gentle clink of a wind chime outside that hadn't hung in years, the whisper of paper fluttering through still air, and always that giggle echoing faintly from beneath the floorboards. The notes escalated. At first they were just words. Let him go. Then they became pleas. He's our brother. He misses us. He cries when you sleep. He wants to come home. Then came the threats. You think we only want Jane? We can take pieces, bit by bit. Lucy tried to hold her ground. She reinforced the salt circle twice a day. She read passages from old protection texts, burning white candles until the wax dripped like blood across her floors. But the spirit, the one she caught, it had begun to speak. Not in words, no. But it projected feelings of thoughts and memories. Lucy would descend into the basement, flashlight trembling, knife in one hand, and feel it pulsing in her mind. At first it was only hunger, raw, aching need. Then sadness. It wept inside her head. Showed her images of itself. Once a real boy with freckles. A gap-toothed smile. A blue coat. The memory flickered and then the boy screamed, burning, drowning, breaking. Swallowed by the dark. Lucy fell to her knees that first time, nose bleeding, the image imprinted on her retinas like a branding. She staggered back up the stairs and vomited in the kitchen sink. The spirit was trying to manipulate her. It had learned her pain and twisted it like a knife. And it worked. A seed of doubt bloomed inside Lucy. What if the creature she captured wasn't evil? What if it was a victim, trapped like Jane might be someday? What if all it wanted was peace? But every time she considered releasing it, something would happen. Once she found Jane standing on the roof. No windows open. No doors broken. Just her daughter, barefoot and glassy-eyed, teetering on the edge, arms out like wings. When Lucy screamed, Jane looked down at her and smiled. Another time, she woke up with bloody handprints smeared across her bedsheets, child-sized. The fridge was wide open. Every photo of Jane torn down and shredded across the living room floor. The worst was the voice. One night, Jane whispered in her sleep, "If you don't let him go, Mommy, we'll let ourselves in." Lucy was unraveling. She kept the basement door locked with 3 bolts now, but she swore she could hear it at night. The spirit singing. Little lullabies. Off-key and slow. The sound like innocence curdled. And when Lucy pressed her ear to the floor, she felt warmth, like breath. She was terrified. But she couldn't let Jane go. She wouldn't. Still, the fear clawed deeper every day. She couldn't go to the police. What would she say? That she trapped a ghost in her basement using a possessed bunny and salt? That evil children were trying to steal her daughter? They'd take Jane away for a different reason. She needed answers. More answers. Back to the forum. Most threads were gone. Deleted. Blank pages. But one new message appeared under the post she'd read weeks ago. Same user. Whisper_hand78. If they've started bargaining, they're afraid. If they're afraid, they can be destroyed. But only one way. You must return them to where it began. The place of first death. The sacrifice must be accepted. The offering must be willing. If not, you've only made it worse. Lucy read it over and over at least 12 times. A sacrifice or a offering. It must be willing. She had no idea what it meant. But the spirits did. Because that same night, when she returned from the grocery store, she found Jane sitting at the kitchen table with a note in front of her, written in crayon. "Let him go, Mommy. I want to play with them." The next few days blurred. Lucy didn't leave the house. She blacked out the windows, sealed every vent, left bowls of salt at every entrance. Jane was quieter now, withdrawn. Sometimes she stared at the ceiling for hours. Once she started humming that same lullaby from the basement. Lucy begged her to stop. And then, it happened. She went down to check the salt circle, and the spirit wasn't alone. There were others. 6 silhouettes standing just beyond the iron line. Faces flickering in and out like static. They didn't move or didn't speak, but Lucy felt them staring. Threw her right into her bones. And they had brought a gift. On the floor outside the circle, just beyond reach, lay a small wooden box. She approached it slowly, heart pounding. Inside was a tooth. Not old, not yellowed, still red at the root, still wet, taped to the lid. A promise, a token, a taste of what we could take. That night, Lucy finally spoke to the spirit. Her voice cracked from disuse. "What do you want from me?" A slight pause where nobody spoke. Then the image again, in her head. The playground. But this time beneath it, roots stretching deep, gnarled and black. A hollow space filled with bones. So many bones. And in the center something else. A hole more like a tunnel, and it seemed endless. They didn't just want Jane, they wanted her added to it. A replacement like a trade, a willing soul. The rules were older than Lucy could comprehend. One child taken, another must be given. Willingly. Not by force. Not tricked. But simply given. The one she had captured had broken the chain. Now the others were trapped. Hungry. Furious. But desperate. They needed a deal. And Lucy was their only option. Lucy didn't sleep that night. She sat in the hallway outside Jane's room, knife in hand, rocking slowly, muttering prayers she didn't believe in. The walls pulsed with movement. The spirit she trapped whispered fragments of thoughts into her head. Images of children sinking into mud, laughter curdling into screams, the taste of rusted metal and cold hands dragging. And beneath it all, that playground. The cursed ground. The beginning. She had to understand it. Had to go there. Not just to see it. To feel it. She needed answers. And the only place that might still speak the truth was the dirt that birthed these monsters. It was just past midnight when she arrived. The streets were silent, air stale and unmoving. The sky above was moonless. Only black clouds hung overhead, like bloated corpses in a sea of ink. The playground sat at the edge of a cul-de-sac that hadn't seen life in years. The grass was brittle. The slide rusted red. The merry-go-round still spun, just a little, even without wind. Lucy approached slowly. Each step felt heavier than the last. The moment her shoe touched the sand beneath the swing set, the temperature dropped. Her breath curled in the air. Her skin prickled. Something was watching. She knelt, brushing her fingers across the ground. The sand felt warm and wet, but she started digging. Inch by inch, ignoring the sting in her fingertips, the dirt got darker, stickier, until, clink, she hit something. It was metal, it's a trapdoor quite small. Rust-covered, hidden beneath years of decay. Her heart stuttered. She hesitated, then pulled. It groaned as it opened, the sound like a scream buried too long. The stench that rose up was unbearable. Mildew, death, childhood turned sour. A narrow ladder descended into the black. She climbed down. What lay beneath the playground was a tunnel. It was small and cramped. Earthen walls, lined with moldy roots that pulsed like veins. Lucy moved forward, flashlight trembling in her hand. Her breath echoed, but the sound was off, like it was bouncing off something too soft. After what felt like hours, she reached a chamber. The walls opened slightly, enough to stand upright. And in the center, a circle of tiny shoes. Dozens of them. Some were burned, others rotted. Some still with charred socks inside. At the center, a blackened tree root twisted out of the ground like a clawed hand, holding something in its grip. A book. It was small. Leather-bound. She stepped closer, pried it loose. The cover read, Eleanor's Journal in 1956. She opened it. Pages stuck together, ink blurred. But she could still read pieces. We didn't mean for it to happen. The game was just pretend, but Tommy fell. We buried him. We said the rhyme. But the rhyme was wrong. It brought something back instead. It lives under the playground now. It made us promises. We became its children. But it always wants more. It told us we'd never grow old, never be forgotten. But it lied. We're just pieces of it now. Hollow. Lucy dropped the book. Her stomach twisted. This wasn't just some ghost story. These weren't random spirits. They were children from decades ago. Bound by a ritual. Trapped in a pact they didn't understand. They had summoned something, and now it ruled them and fed on them. used them to lure others. A parasite beneath the city, and it wanted Jane. Lucy fled. She climbed out of the hole and ran all the way home, not caring who saw her. She slammed her front door shut, turned every lock, and collapsed to her knees. She knew what had to be done. The captured spirit was a key. She could destroy it, burn it, maybe it might sever the tether, break the chain, release the others, and the cycle. She opened the basement door, but the salt circle was broken, just slightly. One thin gap, like something had scraped a path through it. The iron filings were gone, scattered like dust. The bunny was lying in pieces, and the spirit, still inside. But now it had changed. Its form was sharper and it was much taller. Not childlike anymore. Its face split open into a grin too wide. Its eyes no longer pleading. They were knowing. And it spoke. With words. Actual sound. A voice like wind through teeth. Spirit, thank you for believing in me. Lucy staggered backward. She said, you lied. Spirit smiling. No, you filled me with care and with love. That made me real again. It stepped forward, but couldn't cross the circle. Not yet. Said, listen carefully. Release me, and I will take you to them. Spare Jane. She'll be forgotten by us. Lucy said, no. You want to bring her down there. Like the others. You want to feed it. The spirit tilted its head and said, not feed but free. We're all trapped in Lucy. You could help us. You could join us. She turned, ran back upstairs, and bolted the basement shut. That night, Jane didn't speak. Didn't move. Just stared at the ceiling again. Lucy packed their things. They had to leave right now. But when she opened the front door, a child stood there. Not Jane. Not anyone Lucy had ever seen. Eyes black. Smile crooked. Hand outstretched. Behind her were more. A dozen, maybe more. Silent and still blocking the street. They didn't speak. The children at the door, if you could still call them that, stood motionless under the street lights, their shadows bending in unnatural directions. Their faces were grayish, some with dirt-caked cheeks, others with hollow, sunken eyes that never blinked. Their mouths didn't move, but Lucy heard them. Not with her ears, but in her mind. A chorus of whispers, layered on top of each other. Young cracked voices. You took him. You broke the chain. Now someone has to pay. A mother for a daughter. Lucy slammed the door shut, heart pounding like thunder in her chest. She grabbed Jane, who seemed almost dazed, and ran to the back of the house. Every door they tried was blocked. Every window was locked from the outside. As if the house itself had betrayed them. As if the playground's roots had already spread into her home. They were trapped, and then, a sound. Coming from the baby monitor still plugged into the hallway wall. A voice. Not Jane's. Not Lucy's. Just a low, rasping lullaby. Ashes, ashes, we all fall down. Lucy ripped the monitor from the wall. Jane turned to her, finally speaking, her voice distant. Jane said, they said you're selfish, Mommy? Lucy said, looking around. What, who said that? Jane said, the ones under the ground. They said you're keeping me for yourself. Lucy clutched her daughter close. Lucy, I'm keeping you safe. That's what mothers do. But even as she said it, doubt gnawed at her. Jane wasn't herself anymore. Something was inside her house, something seeping into her daughter's mind, starting to control her, using her as a conduit. They didn't need to take Jane by force. They only needed time. The next day, Lucy made one final choice. If she couldn't flee, she would end it. She dug into the basement with every candle lit, her hands trembling as she poured fresh salt and placed new iron nails in a complete circle. She brought the journal from under the playground, pages now more readable under firelight. The ritual that began this all could be reversed. But it would take blood. It would take a sacrifice. A willing soul given freely as payment for the lives stolen. A mother. Or a child. We called the thing under the ground the other parent. We made it real with rhyme and sacrifice. We gave it love and it grew teeth. We didn't mean for Tommy to die. But it asked for more. It said it could keep us young, keep us from being forgotten. We gave it our toys. Our secrets. Our names. And then it took our brothers and sisters and made them like it. Lucy wiped tears from her eyes. Then one entry, almost unreadable, seared itself into her brain. Only by offering the one who loves most can the bond be severed. Lucy stood in the circle and stared down at the spirit she had caught. It wasn't hiding now. It looked like a boy again. But his skin was very pale and freckled, wearing that blue coat from her vision. Lucy said, "Is this true? If I give myself, Jane will be free?" The spirit didn't answer. But in her head, she felt it. Yes, that's true, it's the only way this works. But the voice came from somewhere else. From beneath the house. From the ground. The other parent. One love for another. One mother for one child. You end the game by playing. Lucy didn't want to die. She didn't want to leave Jane alone. But what was the other option? Wait until Jane disappeared in the night? Wait until her soul was one more echo in the merry-go-round's rusted spin? Lucy looked at her hands, they were bloodied and she was tired. She had fought so long. She walked upstairs. Jane sat at the kitchen table, coloring and humming. The same lullaby. But when Lucy looked into her daughter's eyes, she saw her again. Not the thing that whispered through her. Not the shadows using her mouth. Just her daughter Jane. Her little, fragile baby. Lucy said, "I love you." Jane said, "I know." And in that moment Lucy decided. That night she kissed Jane goodnight one last time. She laid out the circle and started saying the rhyme. She stepped into the center and she began the offering. Her hands shook. Her voice cracked. She bled into the ground. Whispered the truth. She loved Jane more than anything. More than life. More than herself. And the ground answered. It opened not with a quake. Not with noise. But with acceptance. A quiet groan of ancient dirt parting. 1,000 children's voices sighing in unison. A hand, thin, blackened, knotted with roots, reached up from the ground and gently touched her foot. Lucy closed her eyes. But just before she stepped through, a sound followed by a scream. It was Jane, but not from her room. From inside the circle. Lucy's eyes flew open. Jane was beside her, clutching her waist, eyes wide with terror. Jane said, "No, Mommy. Don't go." Lucy said, "What you doing here, princess? You're supposed to be asleep." Jane said, "They told me. They said if I let you go, I'd be safe. But I don't want to be safe without you." Lucy's stomach dropped. They had tricked her. It wasn't just love. It had to be willing. The child had to let go. Jane wasn't willing. The sacrifice would be rejected. The circle began to glow. Cracks appeared beneath their feet. Something was coming through. The other parent was furious, deceived, and hungry. The ground split open. Beneath Lucy's feet, the basement floor cracked like glass, and from below the other parent began to rise. It didn't crawl. It didn't walk. It unfolded. Like a flower blooming in reverse, limbs stretching out from nothing, stitched together with the bones of children. Its face was 100 faces, flickering like a broken slideshow. Wide-eyed toddlers, laughing boys, sobbing girls, eyes melted, mouths sewn, each frozen in their final emotion, pain, terror, rage. It saw Lucy. It saw Jane. And it roared. But the sound wasn't sound. It was memory. It was grief. A shriek made of forgotten birthdays, scraped knees, lullabies sung to empty rooms. The iron circle shattered. The salt scattered. Jane screamed and clung to her mother, and Lucy, she didn't run. She pushed her daughter behind her. Lucy screaming, "You don't get to take her. I won't let you." The entity froze. The children, those haunted spirits that had plagued the town for decades, appeared one by one behind it. All of them were very pale, almost translucent, just standing still and watching. But something had changed in them. Their mouths were no longer smiling. They looked ashamed. One spirit stepped forward. The one Lucy had trapped. The boy in the blue coat. He stared up at the other parent, then looked at Jane, then at Lucy, and then softly he spoke. "She loves her too much." The other parent writhed. Roots burst from the walls, trying to wrap around Lucy. They grasped her wrists, her throat, her ankles, but she didn't stop. She took Jane's tiny hand and squeezed it tight, then looked at the other parent and said, "You can take me, but you'll never get her." The spirits began to murmur, a rising wave of whispers, some crying, some laughing, some chanting, "Let her go, let her go, let her go." And then, the boy in the blue coat stepped into the circle. He turned to Lucy and said, "You gave me something no one else did." He placed his small hand on the ground, and light shot through the cracks. Golden. Very bright, blinding almost, but clear and pure. The other parent shrieked. Its form began to wither, collapsing in on itself, roots retracting, bones clattering like dry sticks in a fire. Its many mouths screamed in every lost voice it had consumed. Jane said, trying to hold back tears, "Mommy, what's happening?" Lucy said while holding her tightly, "It's ending, baby. It's finally ending." One by one, the spirits vanished into light. No pain, no screams, just peace. The boy in the blue coat was the last. He turned once more and smiled, Not the twisted grin of the damned, but the honest, gap-toothed smile of a child who was finally free. And then he was gone. So was the other parent. So was the hole. So was the basement. All that was left is just silence. Lucy awoke on the floor the next morning, sunlight streaming through the basement window for the first time in what felt like years. Jane was curled up in her arms, fast asleep. No spirits, no whispers, just the ticking of the kitchen clock upstairs. She rose slowly, afraid it was a dream. But the house was different. No longer sick, no longer haunted, just quiet. She made breakfast. Jane asked for syrup. Life went on. But the town didn't forget. No more children went missing. The playground was bulldozed, paved over with concrete. Flowers planted in the shape of a sun. The tunnel was never found again. Lucy told no one. Who would believe her? But she kept the journal, locked it away in a box under her bed. And some nights, she still heard faint laughter in the distance, a swing creaking where no wind blew. But Lucy no longer feared the dark. She had faced it. She had won. Or so she thought. Because one morning years later, Jane, now 10, came to breakfast with something in her hand. A crumpled note, drawn in crayon. One sentence. Thank you for playing. They never really leave the playground. They just wait. And sometimes, they remember the ones who escaped. Let us know in the comments, would you offer to sacrifice yourself for a family member or a loved one?
Ready for spine-chilling tales that will haunt your thoughts? Subscribe to Forgotten Storyteller for eerie narrations, unsettling mysteries, and haunting stories you won't forget. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a story, because some stories refuse to stay buried. Join us, if you dare.